Yes.
Keep getting worse. Anyway, Christopher Hall is here with a film review, so what's going on?
Well, it's time for The Theory of Everything, the big movie out at the moment. Eddie Redmayne, of course, big Oscar contender. The movie itself, in case you didn't know, is about the relationship between Stephen Hawking and his first wife, Jane. Now, it's not saying anything new or different to say that Eddie Redmayne's performance in this is fantastic. It is wonderful. It is flawless and amazing in every foreseeable way, shape and form. It truly says something about the quality of an actor, regardless of the role it is, when they can say so much about how their character is feeling or what they're going through by the simple change of one slight physical gesture. And of course, because he's playing Stephen Hawking, a man who has motor neuron disease, he can't move that much. He doesn't have much of physical presence, but what little Eddie Redmayne does, even in the slightest movement of an eyebrow or the movement of a mouth, says leaps and bounds more than the majority of actors 20, 30 years his senior.
Now, is he actually playing Stephen Hawking as a disabled person, or is it before, when he was able to walk around?
It takes place briefly before, and then as time goes by, it starts to focus on his time post being diagnosed with it.
Now, is that a theme of the movie in terms of his deterioration, then?
No, the movie itself is based upon a book which Jane wrote. It's about her relationship with Hawking. And I'd hate to be the dissenting voice, given just how good people have been feeling towards this, how supportive people have been about it, is that I didn't feel much from this movie. And that pains me to say, because I really, really, really wanted to love this movie. I'm not saying this movie is bad at all. I'm not saying that for the slightest moment. Eddie Redmayne is fantastic. The story itself is interesting. But the problem that I have with it is that the movie is about their relationship. I know some people have got annoyed that there's not enough science in it, that isn't about him discovering the theory of black holes and the Big Bang. That isn't the case at all. Just get that out of your mind, because it is about the relationship. But the problem is I don't feel anything for the relationship. I feel no love between the two actors. I feel no relationship between the two of them. And part of this is due to the fact that it moves along, certainly in that first hour, way, way, way too quickly. Within the first 5 minutes, they've already met for the first time. There's absolutely nothing done to really establish either of those people, all those characters. I know next to nothing about Stephen Hawking. I know absolutely nothing about his first wife. So this is the moment, this first quarter, this first half of this movie should be us getting to know them. The thing we've got to bear in mind about Stephen Hawking is that when he got diagnosed with motor neuron disease, when he came up with with his theory on black holes, he was only 21.
Wow.
He was our age, and he did all these wonderful, miraculous aspects of science. So to learn about him as the student, as the guy who he was before, in the brief moments that we would have before effectively the iceberg hits and he gets diagnosed with motor neuron disease, would have been amazing. But we don't really. That's because throughout the movie we get the hints of the true man, the real Stephen Hawking, the man who is willing to share in a joke and
the nice guy.
The real nice guy within it. And Eddie Redmayne does that with a great deal of warmth and honesty to it. But sadly, it is a movie which first 5 minutes they meet each other. Within the first 7 minutes, he has his first hint of motor neuron disease. Within the first 15 minutes, he's already been diagnosed with it pretty much. Well, so much happens within that first hour that very little is actually given to the relationship to see these two people fall in love and to become ultimately man and wife.
Now, I imagine the problem there is that you're not actually emotionally invested in the actors and the personalities of the people because,
it's not been established.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem I have with it. I'm not saying that, once again, I'm not saying that they are bad at what they do, either of the performers in this movie, but it's just a fundamental thing of these two dots are not being connected. And the fact that this is about their relationship, I find so startling. It at worst feels like you're going through the greatest hits of Stephen Hawking's life. We have the bit where he gets diagnosed with motor neuron disease. We have the bit where he gets married. We have the bit where he comes up with his theory. We've got the bit where some scientists think he's absolutely wrong. You get this bit, that bit. But none of it actually settles down long enough for you to appreciate it. I know that some people have really taken to this movie, have really gotten behind it. And I say all the world to you, all the love to you, because I couldn't get to it. Purely simply the fact that if it's about a relationship and I don't feel it, then the movie ultimately fails. And as great as Eddie Redmayne's performance is in it, as fantastic, and this is one of those moments where a star is born, I I can't recommend this movie purely on that performance because so much about it isn't about him. Purely isn't about him. It's about him and his wife and the impact that his disease has had on his first wife. But it never settles around enough. We never have a moment of, say, them just, for argument's sake, being in a cafe and sharing a coffee or anything like that before he gets motor neurons disease. And it's a sad thing because I really wanted to love this movie. And at the end, I'm just disappointed. Once again, it's not a bad movie. There are people in the audience that I saw this who really got invested in it. Some people cried during it.
Wow.
I couldn't because I couldn't get invested with it. If you are going to see it, then you may well enjoy it. You may well love it. But for me, and once again, I hate to be the dissenting voice in it, I couldn't get anything from it.
Do you know what? It was the same for me for The Iron Lady, the film about Margaret Thatcher. It actually started where she had already left office and she was sat up, and her daughter, Carol Thatcher, who was about 20 by this time, maybe even 30, came over and sat down next to her. And you could see that she had deteriorated from her time in office. Yeah. And watching that, and I imagine it's probably the same for The Theory of Everything, it's like, it's a shame, but it's like, you need something to contrast with, don't you? You need to have the moments where he's, fit and healthy.
Yeah. So that when it happens, it leaves an impact with you. Yeah. And we only get that sparingly. It feels that first, there is a montage where it's marriage, moving in, baby, within the space of about 1 minute.
Oh, wow.
There's nothing about them trying to find a house that best suits his condition. There's nothing about them trying to get married. It just happens in a one montage. Which, if it's about their life, it's about their relationship. We need to have the relationship. Yeah. Otherwise, when bad things happen, regardless of how great Eddie Redmayne is, or how great Stephen Hawking is, or how great his first wife was, we just sit there going, and.
Yeah, and I mean, the story of Stephen Hawking is a really sad story in general, so, you know what I mean? It's like you want to head, going into this film, the limited amount of knowledge that you have on Stephen Hawking, going in, you want to be, it kind of sounds a bit stupid, but you want to be a bit upset, if that makes sense. Yeah, you want to be taken on a journey.
You want to feel for him. You want to see, because like I said just before, this guy was 21 when he did all these wonderful things. I want to know what he was like before that, so that when that happens, you can go, he's overcome the odds. Yeah. He's proving that this disease doesn't have to be the end, that this can be an inspiring moment, but so in sadly, a way, it doesn't.
It doesn't really do him justice then, in a way, does it?
In a way, not. I know that, once again, some people have been iffy about the science part of it, that not being an interest on the science, but to a certain degree, I feel that there was much of an interest on the relationship because we still have the scientific moments, which I know we need for context. We need to see him trying to come up with his theories on black holes and the creation of the universe, but when it gets a moment of, oh, right, now we may actually feel for them. Why we now actually see the relationship. We may actually see them as a loving couple. Yeah. Right, he's off in Cambridge or wherever it was doing equations.
Yeah. But the problem there is that you can't really have too much scientific knowledge because you'll alienate part of the audience.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so let's end on this for this segment. Now, apparently the film has received 5 Academy Award nominations. Does it deserve them award nominations?
Certainly for Eddie Redmayne. Certainly Eddie Redmayne is fantastic. It wouldn't surprise me if he got Best Oscar because it is a truly metamorphic performance. I said that about Steve Carell last week with Foxcatcher. This is more because, like I say, it's a performance where the slightest change in physical expression can say leaps and bounds. He deserves that. Whether or not his co-star deserves Best Supporting Actress or Best Actress, I can't say because, once again, not established enough. The movie, once again, not a terrible movie, but I can't see that being Best Movie because it doesn't fundamentally work for me.
Which is a shame. Now, I know coming up next you're reviewing American Sniper as the last film that you're reviewing today. Where is it actually set then?
It's set American Sniper. I'll talk about this a bit more detail about Chris Kelly, most accomplished, shall we say, American Sniper in US military history. It's set during his service in Iraq during the Second Gulf War.
Right, great. Right, we'll talk more about that after this. This is Mary J. Blige.